And I will turn things over to Linda Cohen, who is the chair of the Executive Council. And I'm going to, I think that's, Mike, I'm going to mute you because I think you're moving around, was making, and now we've got birds chirping, so.
Yeah.
Linda, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Thank you all for joining us. The first thing we need to do, I believe, is the roll call. Do we have, shall I just do that?
We could either do a roll call, or we could identify everybody by their names from who we can see here.
Okay.
Do we need to call the roll, or can we just go across and read them one by one?
Okay. So we've got Linda, Mitch, I can't, Jeff, Marion, Bob, can't see an empty chair.
I think that's Alan. Yep.
Alan. I'm sorry, the light is terrible here. Hannah, Paul, and who's down in the corner?
Everybody's in a different place depending on whose screen you're looking at, but we have Bonnie North.
Bonnie.
Yep.
And that's as many as I can see.
Okay, I can read the rest. They include Bill Hanel, Christopher Robinson, Julia Tos, Mike Erickson, Bob Keller, Lizette Hanel, Callie Brooks, David Summerstein, Mark Dwanzik, Jim Howard, Andy Gustafson. I believe Rod Giltz is joining us. I'm getting a connecting to audio message on his screen.
That's correct.
And then we have Margot Ernst, and we have Susanna Pillar also on the phone.
Okay, I think that's a full house, is it not?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we are missing anyone. We're missing Ann Adams, but we were aware that Ann had a conflict. So.
Right. So thank you all for coming. This is really great because Mitch and the rest of the staff have huge amounts of stuff to share with us. So I don't want to take up much time at all, but immediately would like to turn it over unless there's something, Mitch, you would like me to address at this time.
No, that's all right. I think
minutes.
Yes,
minutes.
I was just about to say.
Minutes. Does everyone remember the minutes from our last meeting, which Julia so beautifully has sent to us immediately after meetings? Any questions, any changes? If not, may I hear a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. After that, I'm going to turn it over to Mitch and the staff. And again, thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Linda. And my goal is to talk as little about this as possible because we have really the stars of the show here to kind of talk about everything that we've been able to accomplish. But very quickly, just to give you a little bit of perspective on how we responded to the COVID-19 crisis as it unfolded. It's been almost exactly 2 months since we moved a majority of our staff members out of our space in the E.J. Noble Medical Center building in Canton out of concern for interaction. The same reasons that people have moved out of spaces. The same reason, I think we accidentally have a screen share from you, Rod.
Yep. Go ahead, pardon me.
Oh, that's all right. At any rate, we moved out of the space. We kept a minimal on-air staff working in the space and devised a strategy and a schedule to allow them to work safely. For the rest of our staff, including most of our on-air people, reporters, and hosts, we were able to help them build out. Linda, I'm going to mute you here just because I think we're getting noise from your iPad as we're moving it. So we were, as I was starting to say, we were able to construct remote production facilities. We were able to construct, we were able to construct remote production and broadcast facilities. We obviously have some long-term concerns about doing the business of a radio station in a place where we see a lot of potentially sick people. So that was a concern of ours, to have a place to go to if we lost access to the E.J. Noble building. So we have multiple remote broadcast studios, and the ability for our news reporters and even some of our music hosts to be able to produce their shows and their news stories and other content, things like promos from home studios. So it's really been a pretty amazing engineering feat to continue operating a radio station in a way that sounds almost, I would say, 85 to 90% as good as it did when everybody was broadcasting from the same place together. Obviously, we're doing more things over technology like Zoom, and sometimes the technology doesn't hold up quite as well, and so audio quality diminishes. But 85 or 90% of what you hear on the air is every bit as good from an audio quality and certainly a content standpoint as what we were hearing before the pandemic. I'm going to turn things over momentarily to David Summerstein. Before I do, to have him bring us up to date on everything that the news department has been able to accomplish in the last 2 months, I want to publicly announce to the board the exciting news from earlier this week that the NCPR news department won 3 regional Murrow awards in areas including yes, I should take everybody off mute for that. In areas, we'll just all do jazz hands. In the categories of continuing coverage, series, and sports. I think I'll unmute David so he can tell you a little bit more about it. But these are hugely, I guess David is going to have to unmute himself. I tried. There you go. These are hugely significant awards, not just because we won them, but they are among the most prestigious broadcast journalism awards out there. And the winning of the regional Murrows against some pretty tough competition in our region means we go on in all 3 of those categories to compete for national Murrow awards, which we'll find out about later in the year. So huge congratulations to David Summerstein and the whole news team. And let me turn it over to David, who can reflect a little bit on what we've been able to accomplish from a news standpoint in the last 2 months.
Well, first of all, huge congratulations really to everybody, because it's really, we've been saying it on the radio, but boy, with the fundraiser, but boy, it is so true that, it is everybody who's donated and all of you who care so much about the station, who allow us to do this work and make it happen. So thank you to all of you. And it's really great to see everybody's faces. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to, to care so much about what we're doing and what we're doing for the region. And it really is, it's been crazy. It's been crazy for all of us. And I'll talk a little bit about what the news department has been up to. I want to say in advance, a little bit later I might have to leave because I have to take my daughter to go empty her locker. This is like she was allocated like a little window to empty her locker. So a little bit of a bittersweet moment coming up here in Canton. I went back to, I don't know if you've been following our live blogs, and I'm going to share my screen. Can I share the screen? There we go. And I went back to how how do I get that away so that I can share the tab? Okay, good. Well, that's all right. Can everybody see that? So I went back to we started a live blog, and I went back to the first day when it was, I think, the same day as we really all left the radio station, as Mitch described. And it was March 13th. And since then, we've done a full live blog every single day, every day with a brand new photo, which is, I don't know how we're managing to do that, given the fact that we're not leaving the house all that much. And including the weekends, we've done 58 live blogs in a row. And this is just unto itself pretty remarkable for what this team has been able to do. We're a small group of people, and we typically don't do weekend coverage because we don't have enough bodies to be filling to be working on the weekend. So we really had to redo everything that, reschedule everything to make sure that we could keep up with this extremely fast moving story. We're really proud of what we've been able to do so far. And we've heard that from listeners. Bill will be talking about our digital traffic and how it's really soared during especially during the first month of the stay at home. Also, we've done Google surveys. We had to kind of find a way to replicate going out and talking to people, which is the heart of what we do. And so we've been doing these Google surveys. We've done 3 of them, and hundreds of people have responded, maybe some of you. And we've, that's allowed us to sort of basically create like the virtual public square where the person on the street interview, where we can go up and talk to people. We've been calling people on the survey and getting great, really, beautiful interviews and stories that our reporters have been doing. I want to say something that is probably the biggest focus of my job during this last few weeks, the last couple months, has been really ensuring the mental health of the news team. People are working incredible hours under very stressful circumstances, working alone for days at home, and really reporting about very sad and scary things. It's anxiety that we're all feeling. To be reporting about, the problems that hospitals have been facing, and to, be writing about, death and sickness a lot is really stressful. So we've been taking sort of rolling days off for people, been giving people afternoons off as much as possible. And I've been checking in all the time, really, with each of the reporters to make sure that they get the time that they need, that they can stay fresh, and that they can be in it for the long haul. That's really the most important thing that I can do as news director right now, so they can continue doing this great work. I wanted to share just one other little thing, and that is yesterday, Julia Ritchie was in Watertown, and there she is at Governor Cuomo's live briefings, at his live briefing in Watertown. She was really excited to get out of the house and get down to Watertown and do it safely. As you can see, there's plenty of social distancing going on there. So it's those guys, just being able to go and do that it's incredible what these reporters have been able to do under the stressful circumstances. I'd love to just take your questions, but I should also say that our reporters have been at home. We have not been doing pretty much any in-person interviewing, except for very rare circumstances like this one you're seeing here. And we feel like, there are some stations that are having the reporters go into the field and taking precautions. We're doing it on a case-by-case basis, really, but our top priority is obviously to keep the reporters safe. And so we mostly have not been doing that. There's a lot you can accomplish by talking to people on Zoom, by talking to people on the phone. And that's really what we've been, voice memos, we've been doing all of that. And as far as the Murrows, so exciting. Thanks to Callie and the folks at Adirondack Foundation. One of the Murrows that we got was for piecing it together, our series from last year that we were so excited about. And I feel so gratified that we were acknowledged for that. That was for news series. And we also won for a sports story that Emily Russell and Brian Mann did of a race through the Adirondacks over 4 summits and 1 interstate. And the third one, and this also is extremely gratifying, was continuing coverage for the flooding on Lake Ontario last year. And the reason why that's so gratifying to us is I think we really take great pride in stories like this pandemic, of sticking with the story and following it as it develops day after day after day. We take great pride in our daily high quality news. And so to be honored for something like continuing coverage really highlights that, and we feel really excited about it. So those are felt really good to get that news the other day.
And David, if I could jump in for 1 second, I think the other thing, speaking as a station that really strives to cover a really vast geographic region, 2 of those, piecing it together and the Lake Ontario story, really speak to the enormous geographic area that we cover, and to be honored for being effective in covering such a large area really is a feather in our cap, and says to the world we can do this, that we can have a staff that is not enormous, it's not tiny, but it's not enormous, and effectively cover important stories that take place in a vast geographic region. So, job well done in that regard as well. Before we take questions, and I know you've got to go here in just a short minute, David, but let me ask you, do you want to talk briefly about our temporary emergency hire and how
Yes.
Brian has moved on?
Yeah, right. Excellent. Thank you. So Brian Mann, is, I think you all know, is just started working for NPR this week as their national addiction correspondent. We're super proud of him. He's already sat in on a news meeting once this week. So he's still, going to be involved with our news operation and with our fundraising operation. He was on the fundraiser last week when it was his vacation time. And in the meantime, to hire for that position, Emily Russell is going to become the Adirondack correspondent, the Adirondack Reporter, and she's working on relocating to the Tri-Lakes, obviously all complicated by the pandemic, so that's going a little slowly than it otherwise would. But we'll be hiring a Champlain Valley correspondent to take her place. Because of the hiring freeze right now or pause, or I'm not sure what it's called exactly, but at St. Lawrence University, Paul and Mitch and President Bill Fox were so excellent in allowing us to do a temporary hire of a familiar voice for us, Natasha Haverty, who is a reporter who reported here on prisons and many other issues, and the big Garrett Phillips murder trial a few years ago. And she was here for about 5 years off and on, I think. And I can't say how important it is, to have somebody here working full time and helping us keep up with all this news. And it's not easy to replace Brian's productivity, but also to have Natasha, who is someone we so implicitly trust and know well. And that's to not have to really onboard somebody over a long period of time was just huge. So that has really helped preserve the integrity of what we're doing every day.
And so with that, questions for David.
David, is Natasha nearby, or where's she geographically?
Right now she's in Wisconsin. She is working, she and her husband are working on relocating to the East Coast, possibly not to the East Coast, to, they're looking in the sort of Vermont, Champlain Valley-ish kind of region. Her husband is a farmer, and so they're sort of working on that. Because she knows the North Country so well, and because she and because none of us are are leaving our reporting places, we felt like it was okay to have her doing, even though she's doing it remotely right now.
Anybody else?
Maybe just a quick follow-up, David. So you mentioned that no one's leaving their, well, you're keeping reporters safe. Have you seen any real, news impact of that? I mean, is there anything that you may have missed because you're not out in the field? I mean, the fact that Natasha can operate from Wisconsin speaks loudly of her skills, but also how well you've coordinated this.
Of course, there's things we're missing. I especially think about, one of the things that's scary right now about this reopening is that when I have driven around, gone on a hike or something like that, you've seen a lot of stuff, of people being very much too close and large gatherings and all that. We know about that. We're trying to report that, remotely, but we're not there, obviously not there on the scene. And I wouldn't want a reporter going into that situation and go start talking with people. So, are there things that we're not missing? Of course, I mean, we're used to driving around and stopping and talking with people and going to their houses, and we are missing that for sure. But I think that we're being as creative as we can to to really reach out to as broad a wide a net as we can, and using organizations who are also doing incredible work on this story and just on regular life in the North Country and sort of keeping people afloat. The Adirondack Foundation works with a lot of those groups, and they had a call that I was on and gave me some ideas of other organizations to reach out to. So we're sort of doing it that way. We're like everything, like everyone, we're piecing it together. We're really trying to sort of figure it all out as we go.
Well, and
thank you.
If I could jump in, I mean, from the standpoint of the listener, it doesn't seem like you're missing stories. You're just finding different and creative ways to tell them when you can't be
Sure.
there. So, I think that your news gathering ability hasn't changed. It's just having to find creative solutions to covering a story when you can't be physically there with them.
Absolutely. I feel like we've hit, the main stories that we really want to hit. And, there's always a million more, but, we're feeling proud of our coverage for sure of the past 2 months. Very proud of it.
I had a quick question,
Hey, Bob.
if I could. On the TV, the local Channel 2 in Utica and the national PBS, whatnot, they do seem to send reporters out. And I guess that's because they need the visual. Is that why they're doing that? And radio doesn't need the visual?
Yeah, I mean, there are radio stations, other public radio stations around the country that are sending out reporters. Vermont Public Radio, I've heard them do some stuff. I think we're starting to evolve. Julia Ritchie, our reporter, who lives in Potsdam right now, she is working on a story in the Thousand Islands about the sort of potential economic damage there, because Memorial Day on is such a key time, crucial time for them economically, and tourism, how they're feeling about tourism and that. And so she's gonna set up an interview with one of the tourism officials there and do do it, stand far away and have him have a totally separate recorder that only he will use, and then she'll clean it afterwards. So we're going to test out like a limited thing, and they're going to stay outside, not going inside anywhere. I really don't want reporters going inside anywhere. I just don't think it's worth it. But we're talking about innovative ways, like talking people on the phone. If you're at a park, like yelling to somebody across the way and saying, hey, you know, do you have a cell phone I can call you on, and talk to them, do an interview with them on the cell phone. I mean, you know, there are lots of ways to do it, and you can build that into the story. So, you know, we've been talking about those things and ways to, through our reporting as well, communicate that we're obeying the social distancing as well. You know, that we're not just talking about it and telling others, you know, hey, this is what public health officials are doing, but also saying, you know, hey, we want to, you know, we're obeying this too. We're taking it seriously as well.
I know some of my former colleagues back in Wisconsin, especially the day that the elections took place, and it really required reporters to be out in the field to cover that story. They went out there with 6-foot-long boom poles and microphones, and so you know, that might be something that we look at the further this goes on, whether there's some equipment that we can get to make it easier so that we don't necessarily have to have 2 recorders go out with every reporter when they go out on a story. But yeah, David's concern for the welfare of the news team is really second to none. So I think I completely trust his judgment on how to safely cover stories, whether our reporters are staying, you know, in their own homes or going out in the field. Last questions for David? All right, well, I think, thank you so much, David, for everything you've done. And appreciate your bringing the board up to date on all of this. Yeah, I'll send you off on your kind of bittersweet trip to the school.
Thanks a lot. I'll stick around for a little bit longer, but when I have to go,
Okay.
I'll go.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. Thank you. Again, thank you all so much for, you know, for all the attention that you're giving to NCPR and to spreading, you know, spreading our love wherever you guys go. We really appreciate it.
All right, let me turn over briefly to Bill Hanel, our digital director, and have him bring us up to date on just how web traffic has evolved and streaming data has evolved over the course of the last 2 months, because it has been dramatic. Bill?
Yeah, it has been dramatic. All that work and all that sacrifice that David talks about, everybody putting in. You know, the nice thing about looking at the numbers is it gives us a definite feel that we're not just throwing the stuff out there into a hole. We're providing a real service, and there are real people out there who are using it. You know, I can't measure broadcast numbers, so I don't know, you know, who's listening on the radio, but I can definitely say that in our digital spaces, in the month of March, we tripled our audience. And which, I mean, you know, maybe we'll triple our audience one day now and then in a typical time. So, you know, this is a crisis, and people are looking for information. They need the information. They're, you know, it's important to their lives. And the fact that we're able to provide it for them is showing up in the data. We're doing what they need us to do, and there it is. So, like I said, in the month of March, we tripled our website audience overall. But one of the other interesting things about the data, or that the data shows, is that we so that's about 182% increase for our audience overall. But by, you know, in the month of March, our North Country audience, the number of people that we served on our website just in the North Country alone increased 238%. So that's like a lot more than triple. So, and there are different ways to break that down in terms of, you know, how were people using our content, you know, what sort of devices did they use, that sort of thing, that where the numbers look even higher. For example, our mobile audience just in the North Country increased by 333%. So there were a couple things that we could learn from this crisis as sort of an opportunity. You know, when we're able to see these sorts of increases, it gives us a chance to say, okay, how do, you know, when people spend more time with us, how do they prefer to do it, and where are they, and that sort of thing. So definitely being able to look and see how people came out of the cracks and consume this content was really valuable. So there's a North Country audience there that definitely, you know, we hadn't been serving before, and they showed up for this event. That's basically how it comes down. Since the end of March, traffic has declined a bit again, but even since the first week of April, we're still up overall from March through early May by 119%. So the numbers are still strong there. So our regional users went from 39% of our total traffic to 46% of our total traffic. So officially, our North Country audience is almost half of our total traffic now, which is fantastic. And at its peak by the first week of April, our North Country audience was 58% of our total traffic. We just never seen anything like that. It's remarkable. So really, what I'm getting at here is we're definitely providing a service that people need. It's verifiable. Our live stream also increased, not quite as much as our website usage, but it increased by about 32%. And our peak users occurred on March 30th at about 2,300 users on that day, about 4,000 hours of listening. And streaming data is kind of funny because there's different ways to break it down and look at it. So, but that's a ballpark. And again, we were able, you know, we can break that number down and say, okay, how are people listening? And the mobile use of our stream increased by as much as 60% during that time. So that was pretty significant as well. We've seen the same thing with our app. The nice thing is, you know, I mentioned that our website traffic started to decline again after the first week of April, but with our live stream and our app usage, we actually haven't seen that. We're actually retaining the audience that we gained. So they're really staying with us on mobile devices for listening, and they're really staying with us on mobile devices for everything, but especially listening.
And Bill, in the middle of all this, we also introduced some smart speaker skills that allow people to kind of make what we're doing even more portable, right?
Yeah, correct. And we really haven't had a chance to fully, you know, explore that and promote it yet. There's just a couple kinks, and it's not too much we can do about it on our end, because a lot of it is just the way skills work in the Amazon Echo Alexa environment. But that's definitely something that makes it, you know, gives people yet another way that they can interact with us and listen to us. So yeah, big takeaways. You know, there's a North Country audience out there that we haven't been reaching in the past, and now we are, and we have an opportunity to continue to do so. We're seeing traffic pick up again as of the beginning of May, so we'll continue serving them. And the way people apparently want to reach us or interact with us is over a mobile device. Anybody have questions?
I did not warn him of this, but he's in the box right next to me right now. Bob, was there anything you wanted to talk about in terms of the technology that we deployed to make everything that we do possible outside of a radio station? How's that gone?
Well, it's gone pretty well, thanks to some support, I think, from the Adirondack Community Trust, which is not the current name, but we were able to buy some additional field kits and remote devices so that people could interface their computers with quality microphones and do their reporting from there. And we also bought a thing that permits us to stream high quality audio directly from our 2 remote studios, or 3, including the one in Key West, to NCPR in case we actually can't have an actual person in the studio at all. So we're prepared for that even. But other than that, the transmitters keep working. Bill Hanel keeps visiting the sites where they don't work, and so far everything is going well. Anybody have any questions for me? I didn't think so. But nice to talk to you all.
Any icing on our tower in Key West?
No, the one in Key West is fine. I'm looking at buying us a 100 kilowatt station, only $200,000 down here, and we can broadcast to Cuba, basically.
We like to call that our South Country Public Radio Bureau. All right, well, Bob, thanks so much. And if anybody has questions about how any of this stuff takes place after the meeting is over, feel free to email me or email any of my colleagues directly, and I'm sure they'd be more than happy to tell the story, because it's a great story. It's I think back to what we did during the ice storm of '98 and all of the kind of innovative stuff that we had to do to keep serving our mission, and it's all of that, and it's longer, and it's harder, and it's a nonstop whack-a-mole game of challenges, but so far we've been up to all of them, and I'm thrilled that we've been able to do as well as we have, and have been able to keep all of our staff safe and healthy throughout this. So it's really been a team effort in such a good, positive sense of the word. Bob alluded to the grant that we received through the Adirondack Foundation Special Emergency Needs Fund grant program. It was a generous grant, and it did exactly what he said, allowed us to buy more equipment to be able to do all these things remotely that we did not already have on hand, instead of having to string very long cables to people's houses. And it took quite a bit of legwork, but we have a working studio in Bonnie North's house. Upstairs where she's pointing, we have a working studio also at KSLU, which is the on-campus radio station at St. Lawrence. It's a closed circuit station, but it had some good infrastructure there, and best of all, was not being used by students who had to leave campus. And so kudos to Paul Redfern and the SLU staff for allowing us access to that. And we're looking at finding ways to make more regular use of it as the days progress. There's one other personnel update I was just going to briefly bring you up to date on. I know at our previous meeting, we talked about hiring an operations and development associate. That person is sort of a pivot point between the back office stuff and the on-air stuff. It's a position that we still are going to need down the road, but with the hiring pause in effect at St. Lawrence, that position has not progressed any further. Well, we hope to have an update on that in the days to come. But fortunately, one person who was able to get on board just in the nick of time is our new Director of Audience Programs and Outreach. Bonnie North is with us. She's with us on this call. She is my former co-host when I was EP and co-host of Lake Effect in Milwaukee. And I'll have her say a little bit about herself. She's really, the day she started was the day that the WHO declared that we were in a global pandemic. So as much as I feel like I drank from the fire hose when I got here last summer, I think if there's some metaphor that's larger than a fire hose, Bonnie is dealing with it right now. Getting here and having to rearrange the radio station and plan a fundraiser and learn about the business of being a Director of Audience Programs and Outreach when nobody's around. But Bonnie, do you want to say a few quick words about what your job entails and what you've been up to in 2 months on the job? Bonnie, I think you're going to have to unmute yourself. There
okay,
you go.
I am now unmuted. It's great to see all of you. I'm looking forward to the day we can all meet in person. And like Mitch said, I started work on the 12th, and on the 13th, everyone was leaving. And so I have been one of the few people that's been going back and forth to the studio. One of the things we did right away was to strip down the number of announcers we needed to keep things going. Bob was standing by to automate everything if we had to do that, if we'd gotten a cease and desist order. Fortunately, we haven't had to do that, but we have asked Todd to stay on longer than Morning Edition, which he is more than willing to do, and it's been great having him do that. And that means we only have to have one person relieve him, and that keeps the cleaning of the studio down to just a minimum amount. We have the cleaning folks still coming in and sanitizing everything. And there's just a couple of other people that are coming in and out. I'm trying to work from home as much as possible, but I do go in. So it's been good to be able to keep everybody safe. It was one of our big concerns, was getting access to the studio as long as we could, but in a safe way, because as you know, we're in a hospital and there's a testing site that's kind of around back. And there was a little bit of back and forth, but thanks to Paul and Mitch and some other intervention, we got basically our own entrance. It's the entrance we all used anyway, but now nobody else is using it. And so that means that people come in and everything is good that way. I think we're sounding good despite the fact that there's so few people that are actually on the air doing the announcing duties and doing the overnight voiceovers and tracks and stuff like that. It's support that we're giving, to the news team so they can do stuff, but we're still able to produce our music shows. Bob's doing his from Key West. David still comes in. He's one of the few people that comes into the studio. Doyle still comes in. Sarah and Barb both are doing their shows pre-recorded. Sarah, mostly because we didn't want to have her, it was that bottleneck of like having one more person introduced into the studio. And so it actually works out for her. She just comes in very, very, very early in the morning and does it as if it were live in the little mini studio. And then Barb Heller's been doing it from home, thanks to Bob and Bill getting everything set up there. And I think we're being honest about who's live and who's having to do it recorded from home. And I don't think we've lost any audience, which is great. And we're seeing that on the fund drive. And I know Lizette's going to talk about that in detail, but kind of creating the schedule for that and figuring out, I think we sound pretty darn good considering we're doing this. We're inventing it. We've sort of reinvented how to do a fund drive in the middle of everybody having to be in different places. And so I'm very proud of the staff, and everybody sort of stepped up and said, hey, how about if we do this? And what do we do this? And it's that kind of can-do attitude that's really terrific. Quick background on me. I started in radio just a little bit east at Vermont Public Radio many, many moons ago in the 90s when it was a lot smaller and wasn't quite as, just smaller, fewer people, and then went off and did other things, but then spent 14 years at Milwaukee Public Radio, 13 of those with Mitch. And I think we started at about a month apart, right?
Yeah, I started in February of '06,
Yep.
And I was on the hiring committee that found you, and you started in March of '06.
March, yeah.
What has become of Milwaukee Public Radio since? I mean, since you're both gone.
They're all working from closets too. The people that are left. But the news team is much bigger. It was our show that I think has dropped down, in terms of numbers. They're on a hiring freeze too.
Well, and they also they were hiring a general manager at the same time that I came on board here. So that search ended up going a full year longer than planned.
Right. Yeah. Poor John Hess started and we went into a pandemic. So yeah, kind of like all of us. Yeah. But it's been interesting. It's been one of the things I hope to in our next meeting, Bill's talking about not being able to do broadcast numbers. And that's one of my jobs, but that has kind of been put to the side with everything else going on, but it has not been forgotten. I can tell you, I was just sitting in on an NPR webinar for metrics, and they're saying across the board, and I'm assuming will probably fall in there somewhere, that broadcast numbers have shifted, that the usual posts of Morning Edition and All Things Considered, which have typically been the big numbers because people are commuting, obviously are different. And they're seeing, again, this is across the board, they're seeing a decrease in the morning because people aren't getting up as early, they don't have to. And they're seeing an increase and steady listening happening in the afternoon, which is typically not a super high listen to, not talking about streaming, talking about broadcast. And then it's going up for All Things Considered. So sort of the end of the day, people want to know what's going on. And I'm anxious to get to that part of my job, that sort of audience part of my job, to find out where we are and how it dovetails with our web and our streaming, because it'll be interesting to see where they cross and how people are using the service. So that is something that is coming.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. I thought the number you sent me earlier this week, just noting that stations that do music and news are really thriving at this time, speaks to exactly what we're about. The idea that that we try to nurture all the parts of folks' personalities, you know, the part that wants news, but the part that wants to be entertained, or part that just wants to be kept company. And so it's great that we can offer all of those things at a challenging time like this. Yeah, thanks, Bonnie. Unless folks had questions for her.
Mitch, I have one quick question. This is a question, not a request. Have you thought about doing the equivalent of a call-in for the North Country, sort of like the NPR has done the conversation, just to check in? That's a question.
We have, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mitch. I was going to say, I think it's really a technical issue for us. It's really hard to have enough people in the studio to actually safely answer the phones.
Yeah, the issue is that, especially if we wanted to have guests, we would have to have a guest located in another place. We'd have to have an in-studio host. We'd have to have probably 2 in-studio producers, and the ability to make all of those pieces of technology work with each other at a time of social distancing is pretty challenging. So we're looking at ways of, I think the surveys that David was talking about have been a great way to be able to have our listeners and people throughout the region shaping our coverage. I'm starting to work on another special episode of the show that I've been producing called First Person, that will be drawn from questions that are being asked, and also trying to broaden it to some, you know, to some lighter topics that are still going on. It's difficult right now. I think down the road, as we're able to bring more people together, it's something that we could visit. But right now, from a technology standpoint, it's just really difficult to do. David, you wanted to jump in as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing. We thought of, Mitch and I and Bonnie and I talked a lot about this, about call-ins. And another concern we had from the news department was this is a really complicated time scientifically, and it's also a really complicated time, you know, with public health messages, and it's a really complicated time politically. And you put those things together, and we didn't want to get inaccurate information incidentally getting over the air, people debating use of masks or, you know, whatever, without having, like, you know, the sound science behind it. And, you know, given all the stuff that Mitch said about just the sort of technical complications of it, you know, we just didn't feel like it was the right way to, you know, to open the phones and just sort of, you know, let it all hang out there a little bit.
Well, particularly since NPR was doing it too, you know, with the national conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are other stations like VPR, obviously, is doing it. They have a daily show, but they have a daily show. This is what they do, you know, every day. So They have more experience than we do. They have more equipment than we do. So, we just felt it was the better part, and more people. We just felt it was the better part of Valor to, to be conservative on that and stick with the stuff that, we felt really confident that we could do well.
We want to play to our strengths, quite frankly.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate
just on a quick,
leaning towards
sure.
being authoritative versus, more just opinionated. Thank you.
Yeah, and there is some nostalgia for what we did during the ice storm, when we would go on the air in the evenings and open the phones, and people would do poetry and kind of, just keep each other company. And, if there were a good way to ensure that that's what we would do, I think it would be a nice thing to offer on occasion. But at the same time, you don't want to go on the air and, bill it as one thing, have something else have it come out as another, and not program as strongly as we could. And, I think I would rather err on the side of fewer train wrecks on the air than more.
And just a quick programming note on the national conversation. NPR announced earlier this week that they are ceasing production of that as of the 26th of May. So we'll run it through the 26th of May. And then as of the 1st, which is Monday, the 1st of June, everything moves back an hour. We never lost any of the programs. We just shifted them up so that we could accommodate the national conversation. But now that that's wrapping up for them, we're going to all go back. And so I just want to let everybody know that.
Great. Thank you so much, Bonnie.
You're welcome.
We're thrilled to have you here, and I'm thrilled that you would want to spend any more time with me after the last 13 years.
Well, at least we're not hosting a daily show anymore, right?
Exactly. Just a couple of other quick updates before I turn things over to an update on the fundraiser with Lizette. I mentioned the Sun Fund grant from the Adirondack Foundation. I also wanted to mention the additional appropriation that we got this year from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. CPB got a significant amount of money in the first CARES Act that was passed, and that was earmarked for public broadcasting, especially stations, both TV and radio, that serve rural audiences and audiences mainly consisting of minorities and other generally disadvantaged groups. We fit the rural audiences category very well, so we received about $112,000 as a stabilization grant to help us plug some gaps that might be caused by needs for new equipment, for shortfalls in revenue from underwriting or membership, and other specific issues related to COVID-19. So that's helped us, as has the freezing of NPR had a plan to phase in dues increase, the increase for programming fees and membership over the next few years. And knowing the situation that member stations are in, they have frozen that for the next year. So we were expecting to see an increase for FY21, and we are not now. And American Public Media, who distributes a number of the shows we carry, has done the same thing. And so because of that, some of the financial stressors that we were looking at are not necessarily going to be financial stressors in this coming fiscal year. And that plays into the budget that we submitted to St. Lawrence a few weeks ago, which took, I think, a fairly realistic look at what we might see in terms of decreases in underwriting and in individual giving, but also savings that we're able to put into practice elsewhere. I don't know if Paul wants to say anything. I know the St. Lawrence budget process is a bit delayed just because of so much uncertainty that the university is facing. I think we're all going to want to banish the word uncertainty from our language before long here. But yeah, you're welcome if you want to just say a brief word on the SLU budget as it pertains to what we do.
Yeah, I'll just say that the commitment that Mitch and I have made to the trustees and the CFO at St. Lawrence is to work for a balanced budget each year, you know, and I think that only makes sense. And the budget that we submitted is a balanced one for the next fiscal year.
Thanks, Paul. And at this point, this is a good time to bring Lizette in on the conversation for an update on the fundraiser already in progress.
Great. So let's talk some money. Actually, you know, I'd like to say before I start getting into the numbers and everything that I'm actually rather pleased with where we are considering the challenges and the pandemic. As you all know, we had to postpone in order to be sensitive to the donors' needs during this time. So, you know, with people dying and all the COVID news and the financial issues, it just really made sense to postpone this. That said, we knew that when we came back and did a fundraiser, we really wanted to hit that sweet spot when people had adjusted to their new realities, and also right before they went back to work as well. So I think we managed to hit that sweet spot and have been fundraising during the right time, thankfully. So with all that said, we started our fundraiser last week with May 5th being a Giving Tuesday, which is that generosity movement. We kind of did a soft launch. We still used Giving Tuesday. Just turn this off because it's, thank you. We went ahead and launched during Giving Tuesday. Now, typically Giving Tuesday we use to talk about, we're normally coming out of our fall fundraiser, but this was a special initiative that they did. So typically we use it to talk about all the other organizations, all the other not-for-profits that really need the support around the communities that we live in. This one we still did go ahead and say, you know, please support us, but also support any of those not-for-profits that really need your help right now. So, and we had decent results from that. You know, we didn't know what to expect, but we brought in some money, about $5,000. So that was still a good start to the next day, which is our actual official fundraiser kickoff day, which was the 6th. And we had remarkable record-breaking days, actually, on the first day of fundraising and the third day of fundraising. We actually doubled the number of total amount of money raised in those 2 days that we normally see, that we saw in both 2018 and 2019. It was doubled. So wonderful, great start to the fundraiser. So where are we right now? We are at $190,000 of our $250,000 goal, which, you know, we still have $60,000 to go, and we end tomorrow. So we still have a ways to go. But I'm actually very confident that even if we don't come in completely tomorrow, that we will come in. We've had some challenges, you know, when we knew going into this one that we'd have to modify things a bit. It is a shorter campaign than we typically do. We usually do a 2-week campaign, 2 to 2.5 weeks minimum. This was going to be a 1.5-week campaign. So of course that's going to factor into the total as well, considering the fact that we're also only doing partially interruptive. Normally we do this non-interruptive format, and this time we have added some more time to talk about the fundraiser as well. On top of that, we had phone limitations. You know, the systems that we have, unfortunately, there was no good way, since there's nobody at the office fielding calls, to get those calls through. So we're relying on donors coming through and leaving a message for us to call them back. And they are, and it's been wonderful. I've spoken with a lot of amazing, amazing people. Anyway, we can get into some of the testimonial things later. I'll stick to the numbers. So beyond that, we had live pitching issues with everybody working remotely. Of course, we had to zoom in, and I think Bonnie touched on some of this a little earlier, and so did David. You know, the challenges involved with actually working from our homes and actually pulling off a fundraiser while doing that. The other thing is we only pick up our checks once or twice a week. So that in itself, we don't see that steady bump every day. We'll see these bigger bumps during the week. which actually we should see a bump today as well. So I'm looking forward to that. So all that to say that, yes, we still have a ways to go, but I am very confident that we will actually come in by the time we factor in all the checks that are going to come in. Normally our last day is our largest day of giving, so we should see some really good numbers come in tomorrow if things remain consistent. And yeah, as far as number of donors right now, I can tell you that we've seen, one other thing I wanted to tell you though, our goal, we did bring it down. Normally we try to go for $300,000. We are going for $250,000. And in both 2018 and 2019, we reached $250,000 on day 12 of our fundraiser. We're going to 10 days. So obviously, again, I'm still very confident we'll get there. Did anybody have any questions before I move on to some other numbers? No? Okay, good. Some great things to note. We've had over 1,400 gifts come in so far. Of those, 800 of them came in just in the last week and a half since we started. And what we're seeing is an increase in additional gifts. In other words, people who have already come in with a gift and now are making even an additional gift, even if it's a small $25 gift, they're doing something extra for us, which has been wonderful. We've seen quite a number of those, actually 450 donations this week alone in additional gifts. On top of that, we're having increases in sustainer giving. And based on the report I ran today, our sustainer giving is up. We're actually seeing an increase. We're like at 22% now overall for sustainers, which is it is an increase over what we had done in the previous. We're also seeing a lot of expats, people who live outside of New York State. Maybe they may be seasonal, maybe they're just family members that are tuning into what's going on here. We're hearing a lot from a lot of them as well. So that's been really, gratifying to know. And so many of them are just raving about the streaming and being able to get us that way. So it's, we've certainly filled a void for a lot of people during this time, and we've certainly, one of our goals was to be their companion, and we've done that. So we're grateful for their response in supporting our work. Our retention rate tends to be 76%. So, I am still very hopeful. I'm surely we'll see as the year progresses. But as far as this fiscal year goes, I'm right on target with where I need to be. I'd say we'd have, we still need to raise about $85,000 to meet this year's fiscal year-end goal. But really, I'm thrilled with where we are in considering that. Did anybody have any questions for me?
I just want to jump in and say that one of the things, because I'm David called it being a pitch whisperer. I'm coming in on Zoom chat in the morning for Morning Edition and also for All Things Considered. So I'm helping Lizette get comments to the people who are on air and directing them. And one of the things we're seeing a lot of is people giving gifts for those who can't. And it's a really wonderful thing to be able to say on the air, and it just shows, again, that generosity of spirit. But I don't know if there's a number of that, Lizette, if there's any way to track that, but it's just pretty astounding, the numbers of things we're getting, like gifts in honor of, or even if it's not to somebody specific, it could be, hey, this is just for somebody who can't.
We're having quite a few of them actually select. We have a button on our donation form called Tribute Gift, and quite a few people are making these tribute gifts, and those are certainly factoring in to some of our additional gifts. But some of these are brand new donors as well. We've already seen 77, probably higher today because I didn't rerun that number from yesterday, but 77 new donors just since we went on air to start this campaign. Overall, we've seen over 100, I think almost 205, that's what the number was yesterday anyway, from January till now on number of new donors. So, there again, I'm very optimistic that we're where we need to be right now. And then of course we'll have to strategize about what we need to do into the next fiscal year.
Great. Thank you so much, Lizette. Unless there are more questions for her, I'm happy to move on to the next agenda item. And I think we also should give a round of applause to Lizette and her team for being able to do all of this stuff from a remote location, multiple remote locations. It's an underrated part of the development job that there are physical things that actually have to transpire for us to be able to process people's donations and keep track of them. And it's not an easy thing, just knowing that, you know, I sign thank you notes, but somehow we have to generate those thank you notes. They have to get printed. They have to be brought to me from the station. I have to sign them. We've got to stuff the envelopes, and then you know, I physically walk them down the street to the mailbox. So
at least we bought the stamps that are self-sticking, so he doesn't have to lick them.
Yeah, exactly.
No, really, it takes a team. It's taken everyone. I'm pleased with, you know, my development staff. The reporters all came through. Our digital team has done fantastic work. We did what we needed to do to be as successful as we can with this campaign. So, you know, Mitch and Bonnie have been truly instrumental in keeping the momentum going and making sure that we have what we need. So thank you to everyone. And of course, everyone here who knows and appreciates what we do. Never too late to give, by the way, if you haven't already, ncpr.org/give.
Or if you're old school, 1-877-388-6277.
Yeah, leave a message. I'll call you in a few minutes.
Exactly. So with that, let me briefly update you on the work of the committee putting together the strategic plan. We are in the process of trying to devise a strategic plan looking 3 to 5 years in the future. We had a very productive first meeting a couple of days ago. A number of the people that are on this call were represented at that meeting, and some others who joined us as well. And it was partly a get-to-know-you session and partly a planning for what the first step should be. And that first step is kind of establishing a baseline where the station is in terms of reaching audience, what our strengths and weaknesses are, basically doing a full SWOT analysis, as they call it: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So for our next meeting, we're going to be trying to take a good look at the fiscal condition of the station, and also the reach that we have, what we know about our audience and what we know about our competitors. And that meeting should be, we've decided to make it a committee that meets monthly. So we're aiming for a mid-June second meeting. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Linda Cohen to talk about transitions on the Executive Council. Let me unmute you, Linda. Hold on. There you go.
Okay. Thank you, Mitch. I hope everyone else was as intrigued with all of what we've learned this afternoon. We have before us the opportunity to bring on several new council members, as 3 of us are retiring in the next couple of months, 3 months. But I am going to, and we need to elect a new chairperson, and we should have a vice chair. I am going to suggest to this group that you vote to postpone these activities for a couple of months, simply because we've not had the opportunity to do anything on air in terms of soliciting new board members, and nor have Mitch and I done our duties in terms of coming up with some possible candidates for the chairmanship. This is not because I wish to continue longer than you may want to have me, but simply because with the situation as it has been for the past couple of months, we've had to sidetrack a few things. We have not got a list of potential new board members, and I would encourage each of you to think about people that might be appropriate and make those recommendations to Mitch or me. And we will follow up on them. We do have a form that will be posted very shortly where you can access it or tell someone who's interested to access it to fill out. You may remember doing it yourself if you're a relatively new board person. Then any candidates that would like to come forward as in the leadership roles, we would be thrilled to hear from you, and we will follow through on that. Does anyone have questions about that? All of that?
Linda, I have something I wanted to ask. This is Paul.
Yes.
One, I wanted to say thank you too, and the first of many thank yous. You've been a great partner, especially in bringing along the leadership transition the last few years. Second, as we think about new members to the council, I think one of the areas of the strategic plan is going to be looking at the facility, and what type of facility do we need and do we want into the future. And I think thinking about board members that might have expertise in that particular area, or in real estate or restructuring buildings, anything in that area would probably be helpful from a talent standpoint on the executive council. So as you think about members and their or potential members and their talents, I think that's one area that we could definitely use some help in.
That would kind of legislate toward looking for a real Canton area person. We're a little shy of those people, and maybe there's a Canton realtor that would be an interested party. And there, I can't help you, but those of you that live in the region might be able to come up with someone who would be interested and would be a good addition. I think that we've sort of concentrated over the years on getting regional distribution, and we're in better shape on that, I would say, than we've been in some time. I know that Callie and Margot have been concerned that we didn't have enough Lake Placid representation, so a recommendation of people from Lake Placid is always welcome, and we will be looking to replace someone from the Plattsburgh area because Rod will be leaving us as well. And unfortunately, Andy Gustafson has moved. He's more than happy to stay with us. I believe he hasn't indicated otherwise, but he's not. He does not have the old Forge coverage that I was hoping he was going to take over from me. So I'm looking for someone in this region that might be able to help as well. But if there are other things beyond the geographic, such as what Paul has mentioned in terms of finding someone who's thinks about real estate, it would be very helpful to have those recommendations. And I would suggest that we will put forward a list of possible candidates to you all sometime in June, with the hopes that we could vote on them at the July meeting and bring them on at the July meeting, as well as the people who would be in the leadership roles, so that we wouldn't actually exceed our terms, but we would not elect at this meeting since we don't have anyone to elect, but rather at the July meeting.
Yeah, and Linda, I think 2 years ago we elected at the July meeting, and then
maybe
and then people started, I think, at the next meeting. So that would be consistent.
Yeah.
And as Linda and I discussed, it seems to hew to the CPB requirements, and it seems like a minor enough adjustment that if this is the biggest thing that the CPB has to worry about, the exact voting date of our executive council, they're in better position than I think they are.
It's fairly vague in the bylaws. So.
Do we need to take that vote now? Is that how that?
I think we should, just for the record, is there anyone who would be willing to put forward a motion to proceed with the election of new board members and officers at the July meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We will work diligently between now and July. Thank you.
All right. And the last, before we get to public comment, the last item on the agenda that I wanted to at least get the conversation going on. Linda, you and I have talked about this, and Paul, you and I have talked about it at some length, and a couple of our other committee members have kind of brought it up. Mark, for one, and in casual conversation with others. Just beginning to have maybe broader conversation about the best role for the EC to play. I think, we're closing in on my first year here. And while it's been a year that's been like no other that I've experienced in radio, I think I'm starting to get a better understanding for many of the issues that the station is facing. And what that has me thinking is that we need to put the executive council to good use and have you do things that kind of fit to your skills and your strengths and make this fulfilling board enterprise for you all. I don't want it to just be about having people on the board who are going to support us with big donations. I really want people on the board that are going to be engaged, serve to some degree as ambassadors for the station in their communities, and also come back with ideas for not just what we ought to be doing, but taking the aims and ambitions of the station and saying, hey, this is an area that I feel really comfortable with and have a great deal of ideas, or I know people who have a great deal of ideas to help with them. These are the people that you need to go and talk to when we can all travel, or who could hop on a Zoom call with me. This is a way that we can better serve Plattsburgh, or this is a way to develop more alliances in the Southern Adirondacks, or this is a way that we can reach our audience in Glens Falls and Queensbury better, or Watertown or Kingston or whatever. And so I wanted to kick off the conversation at this meeting just by hearing from people on the board about, when you signed on to the board, what were the things that you really were hoping to do, and how can we work towards a model of this board that allows you to do them?
That didn't seem to elicit great conversation.
Alan, would you like to talk about the?
Think about it.
Alan, would you like to talk about the baseball jerseys behind you, maybe?
So this is Margot. Can you hear me?
We absolutely can. Yes.
Okay. I was just thinking that the strategic plan would be a good place to work on this, because as you have your major projects going forward, one of course is building a new facility or moving to a new facility, which I hope, then I think you fill in that with the board members and their abilities and their things that they can do. I think the two should sort of go together, and I'd like to see the strategic plan first, and then I think you're going to be able to find people who can fulfill these roles, or are already members who can. And I think it's kind of abstract at this point. I'm just thinking, but I do think there are wonderful things that the Executive Council can do.
Yeah, and I wasn't going into this expecting everybody had ready-made answers, but I think it's important, both for the future of the station and the relationship between the station and the executive council, to have people that are really truly engaged and want to see the station succeed, and have things in their skill sets that can be brought to bear in getting us to that next point. We've sort of long passed the point where we can be shaped by one dynamic, strong leader. Not to sell myself short, but I think I come at this station and leadership here from a different place than Ellen developed over 35 years, and so I need to be able to turn to this council in ways the same way I turn to my staff members in ways. So if we can at least be thinking about how we can best be putting each of your unique skill sets to use in the months to come, and follow up with you independently and at the next meeting. I would really love some ideas for how to make this a really mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah, Mitch, if I could jump in, I'm a little hesitant to do this because this is my first meeting, and this is dangerous for me to even say anything. But I think your point on the strategic plan, providing the roadmap and the blueprint for the next generation of the station, in all ways, aspirational and product, the whole thing. I think board involvement should naturally flow from that. And in a traditional sense, relative to both corporate governance, but also just board participation, good committee structures tend to facilitate what you're asking for. And I'm just talking totally off the top of my head here, but committees that would lever board members and their expertise in the obvious areas of things like product, and by that the broadcast product and the digital product. Those who could be ambassadors and assistants to you on ideas there. The other would be audience development. The other one, and this is kind of traditional, would be fundraising, marketing, and financial development. One that I think is really timely now is the integration with SLU on its next generation of curriculum. And then maybe another one these are all possibilities, I'm not suggesting this. Another one could be partnerships and alliances as we look at our strategic footprint. So, but I think the strategic plan will naturally identify those areas. And Linda, you mentioned facilities. Facilities is center in this whole thing. So, so those are just my thoughts as the rookie here, but we'll see how those develop, I guess.
I think also, this is Margot. I don't know what the deal is between St. Lawrence University and the station, but I would think if we could have some nexus of thinking going on between them and some maybe representation on the board. I guess we're not supposed to, but I think that's rather crucial in some ways.
Yeah, Margot,
this we can do together.
Margot, this is Paul Redfern. I think there is overlap on the board. We have myself as one piece of that overlap as a senior staff member at the university, and the person that oversees administratively the station. We also have two members of the trustees at St. Lawrence who serve on this board. Jeff is one of them. He's a new trustee and a new member of this board. And I don't see Marion. She was on the call, but Marion Roach-Smith is a longtime member of this board as well. So there is some of that. And both Jeff and I are part of the strategic planning task force at the institution as well. So we're trying to create some of that synergy.
Okay.
Good conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I would encourage. I mean, I had a very nice conversation with Mark just a few days ago, or I guess last week, just kind of at length, chewing the fat a little bit over just things at the station and issues that we face. And I would love to talk with more of you in a more casual way, just to get your sense for things that might not, rise to the level of let's talk about them at a meeting, but that we could really be discussing, how to put you and maybe others that to good work.
That's a great idea.
So feel free to get in touch with me directly. I mean, the nice thing, the horrible thing about the situation we're in is that we're all, available all the time. But the nice thing is that we're all available or much of the time.
Well, we just need to make your day 48 hours long.
Yeah, exactly. And never let me see my family. Was there anything else on that agenda item before we move on to?
Hey, Mitch, just a quick comment. First of all,
absolutely.
I enjoyed chatting with you, but also the fact that you're even raising this and asking people to think about specific ways they can contribute more specifically. And for instance, Paul earlier raising, hey, if we're going to think about facilities, we need people on the executive council who can think that way. Just even voicing those and making it explicit is really helpful. I think that's never been, it's mostly just we're a group of, geographically, representing the Adirondack North Country, but other than that, so I think it's really great you're doing this explicitly.
Great.
Good point.
Very good. Other conversation on this point, or can we jump to public comment? All right, so we're going to jump to public comment at this point. And I will note that we received 2 email communications ahead of time that we will not read into the record, but I will forward them to Julia, who is taking minutes, I believe. Thank you very much, as always. One of them was from Lou Kurth, who had some nice things to say about our ability to connect the North Country at a time like this, but reiterated his call for us to be able to create a better online forum for people to exchange ideas. And then we had one from a gentleman in Carthage named Ralph, and Ralph's last name is escaping me right now, who was concerned about the inconsistency of doing interviews with people about the dangers of alcohol use and then following them with funding credits for liquor companies in the NPR Wine Club. And he's been in touch with us in the past about the proliferation of liquor underwriters on public radio. And he also got in touch with me a few months ago to tell me what a great job I'd done in reducing the number of liquor companies that are on public radio. So the pendulum swings in his eyes, and we're responding to him, but he asked that his comments be put in the public record, and I am more than happy to do so, and go on to have a philosophical conversation with him down the road. Michael Owen is with us, as he often is at our meetings for some public comments, and I'm going to unmute you, Mike, and knowing that we're running a little low on time, to the degree that you can be as efficient while still making sure that you get to express your thoughts. Hi, Mike. Good. We are not here. I have you off mute, but I can't hear you. Hold on. Good. Apologies, Mike, I can see you're talking, but we're not hearing you. Let me see if I can. There's nothing I can do.
You want to use the call-in number, but then we can at least hear him even if we don't see him.
Do you have the call-in number? I can send it to you if you need it.
So
I did just send you the direct phone link. I apologize that you're having trouble there. Do you know mime? Could you mime your question? Maybe charades?
Mitch, he can also put his question into the chat.
Into the chat as well. Yes, you should also feel. I mean, I just sent the phone number to you through chat if you wanted to try that, and otherwise, if you want to text your question to us. It's a brave new world of virtual meetings here. I was looking at the next time we do this, we might be able to set it up as a webinar, and then people, when they want to talk, can signal that they want to talk, and we can just punch them in.
I wonder if his digital connection is just so slow or slow down or something. He's not moving very much, or the rest of us seem moderately animated.
Yeah, although I think
Mike is my age, so that's a reason. Right, Mike?
All right.
Well,
Democracy Now! Mike has talked with us before about the desire to have Democracy Now! Air on North Country Public Radio, and it's a conversation that I've had seriously with him a couple of times, and I'm still talking with him about it. I'm still willing to talk with him about it. The concern I have, I think, in all fairness, I've listened to some recent Democracy Now! Shows, not much during the COVID pandemic because I have only had so much mental energy to do anything. But they've done some remarkable reporting. The concern I've had, and I've expressed to you, Mike, is that it's 5 hours of programming a week, and that 5 hours is I think if we were talking about a single hour of programming, it would be much easier to look at some shows that were performing poorly or that we might want to look at replacing. If Democracy Now! Did a best of show in a week, weekly, it's something that I would consider much more strongly than I would consider replacing 5 hours of current programming. That said, I don't know whether Bonnie, Bonnie is our Director of Audience Programs and Outreach. I don't know if you were on the call when Bonnie spoke, Mike, but she's somebody that we can bring in on the conversation about it as well. But I understand your true interest in having additional views represented that aren't always represented on mainstream public radio. And I'm sorry we couldn't hear you in your own voice, but I appreciated the, if nothing else, it gave us a new visual to look at. Well, thank you so much to everybody for public comment, for all who joined us on this call. It was a truly successful meeting as far as attendance is concerned. It was thrilling to get to see so many people, and I know there are many of you who would rather do it either later in the day or at a time that's not right in the middle of typical business hours. And we'll do our best to find a time that works for people on a general basis, but I'm thrilled that so many people could be with us today. Linda, did you have any thoughts before we talk about the next meeting?
No, I'm just reiterating what you say, and I don't want to take up more time, but it's great to have this participation.
Okay. Our next meeting is the annual meeting at which board elections will take place. That date is to be determined. We're still waiting on finding out the the rules of the New York on Pause Act, the chances are pretty good, if I had to guess, that we will be doing the annual meeting remotely as well. But perhaps there's another model that we could look at. We've got a couple of months to plan it out, but I will get the date to you as soon as possible. Things are obviously fluid, but we'd like to be together if we could. This is a nice substitute. It's great to see the inside of everybody's offices and homes. So I'm thrilled that we got to do this. Any last thoughts from anybody else on the board?
Mitch, just a clarification. Can we assume that we'll, if we can't be in person for future meetings, we'll do it by Zoom versus we used to do call-ins, and this is a much more effective way of doing it?
Agreed. Yes, I think any future remote meetings will be by Zoom.
But even if it's not remote, just even if there are a couple people who can't attend, maybe they can attend by Zoom is what I'm asking.
Absolutely. Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll have there was some confusion about the Zoom link this afternoon. So
but we all got here.
Yep, we all did. And as I told Linda, I'm finding out why so many public radio station managers have what they like to call assistants. But thank you all so much. I hope you do all stay safe. I'm thrilled again at how many of you could be here with us today and who contributed. And thanks for everything you do. And I would be remiss if I didn't once again mention that our fundraiser goes for another day and a half, and you can contribute at ncpr.org/give. And if you've given already, please do feel free to pass along that link to others who may be able to and in a position to. And they're certainly welcome to give after the fundraiser is over. So thanks so much. Stay safe. And
do we need to adjourn? Do we need a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Yep.
Before we do it, we haven't had a chance to thank Mitch for all his work. So how about
That's right.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Well, the whole staff, but Mitch.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, we really talked a lot with Mitch during the search process about what he would do in a global pandemic.
Yeah, right.
And you know, he's just executing on that plan. So, great job, Mitch.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Mitch.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I saw Mike raise his hand too, Mike Erickson.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Stay well, everybody.
Stay well, everyone. Yep.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks from Canada.